This chilling video was taken moments before a brutal murder took place. And these are the killers. They had pursued their victim throughout the streets of Manchester, engaged him in a high-speed car chase, and then finally chased him on foot before stabbing and killing him in cold blood. And scarily enough, they're not even sorry for what they did. These are the final moments of a student who is chased and stabbed to death. 16-year-old Romero West, popularly known as Mero by his friends, lived in Manchester, England with his family. He was the nephew of the former Manchester City star Shaun Wright-Phillips and was described as a bright teen who was always smiling and was amazing at sports. He was also kind, caring, and loving, and always knew how to make people laugh. When this incident happened, Romero had just finished high school and was enrolled at a local college studying catering. He was also pursuing his dream of becoming a musician and had even produced his first music video. Tragically, he didn't live long to see his dreams come true. On Thursday of September 9th, 2021, at around 5:45 p.m., Romero had just completed his first day in college and decided to meet up with friends for some food. What happened next was a scene straight out of a terrifying action movie. Romero was driving along Princess Parkway in Manchester with 4 of his friends when suddenly 2 BMWs pulled up beside them and several men jumped out. The men ran towards the car Romero was driving, and one of them started lunging and banging on it with a large knife in his hands. In a panic, Romero forced his car between 2 cars that were in front of him and then sped off, as the men raced back to their vehicles and started chasing after him. A high-speed chase ensued as Romero and his friends tried to get away from their pursuers. Dashcam footage shows that the 3 cars were swerving in and out of traffic and driving on the wrong side of the road. Romero, obviously scared for his life, drove too fast and in an erratic manner, and after about a mile, he crashed into a vehicle before hitting a tree. Desperate to get away, he and his friends then jumped out of the vehicle and started fleeing on foot. But sadly, Romero would not get far. Chilling footage later obtained by the authorities shows that one of the pursuers jumping out of a moving vehicle had a large knife in his hand. He chased after Romero for a while, but at some point he seemed to run out of breath and started to slow down. Then, in a move straight out of a relay race, one of his friends came and took the knife from him and continued with the chase. Meanwhile, Romero was desperately banging on people's doors trying to get them to let him in. But sadly, no one did. One witness later said that she saw Romero being pursued and banging on one of the houses. When no one answered, he climbed over the wall of the next house and hid in the garden. But unfortunately, one of the goons found him and shouted, "Arr, got you," and then proceeded to slash and jab him multiple times with a knife. The goon then got into the waiting BMW and fled. Romero sustained 5 knife wounds on both of his legs. At first, he was able to stand and walk unsteadily for a short while, but then he collapsed. It turned out that one of the jabs had hit a major artery, and he was bleeding profusely. The neighbors called the emergency services and tried to perform first aid on the teen. When the paramedics arrived, Romero was in such a bad state that they reportedly had to perform open heart surgery on the streets. However, despite their best efforts and that of the doctors at the hospital, Romero sadly succumbed to his injuries. He was pronounced dead at around 7:36 p.m. The news of Romero's death came as a shock to the entire community, as they couldn't understand why anyone would want to harm him. His family later released a heartbreaking statement expressing their devastation and calling for justice for their son. Meanwhile, a murder investigation was launched as the police worked around the clock to piece together the sequence of events leading to the horrific murder and find the people responsible. They checked surveillance footage and took DNA samples from a BMW that was found abandoned a short distance from the scene of the crime. About a week into the investigation, detectives announced that the 2 arrests had been made in connection with the incident. Shockingly, it turned out that those arrested were actually teens, one of them so young that he could not even be named. However, a judge lifted the ban hiding his identity, and he was identified as 17-year-old Marquez Richards. The other guy was 19-year-old Ryan Cashin. Police also arrested a third man, 20-year-old Giovanni Lawrence. According to the police, Giovanni was driving the BMW that Ryan and Marquez were on. When Romero and his friends were crushed, Marquez was the one who jumped out of the car and ran after them with a long knife, while Ryan followed after them. When Marquez got tired, Ryan took over for him and finished the job. But why did they do it? All 3 boys were charged with murder and under joint enterprise law, meaning that it didn't really matter who actually dealt the fatal blow because they all had clear intentions of killing Romero. During the trial, Marquis testified earlier that day before the incident. He and his friends were trying to buy pot from a dealer when Romero reportedly started driving towards the dealer as if wanting to run him over. This made Marquis and his gang furious, and they wanted to confront Romero. Marquez says that he banged the car that Romero was driving a few times to try to scare the people inside. But when he looked through the window, he noticed that all 5 boys in the car had pulled out their knives. Not being one to back down from a fight, Marquis reportedly grabbed his own knife from a friend and started lunging through the driver's window, but did not hurt anyone. Whether this is true or not has never been confirmed. In fact, the prosecution has never been able to outline the motive for the killing, but did state that the BMW that Romero was driving was also stolen. Ultimately, all 3 boys were found guilty of Romero's murder and were sentenced in accordance with the role that they played in the crime. Ryan and Giovanni received life sentences with minimum terms of 24 years and 21 years respectively before they can be considered for parole, while Marquez got a minimum of 18 years in prison due to his age. Romero's heartbroken mother read a victim impact statement in court, saying that the killers had hunted her son like a pack of wolves, but had not shown remorse for what they had done. To add to this, Romero's mother pointed out that after Marquis was found guilty of killing her son, instead of showing remorse, he made a cutthroat gesture at her and told her, "Your son got smoked." How messed up is that? But it gets worse. The 3 criminals laughed and waved at people in the courtroom as they were being led from the dock. Later, a senior detective said that the teens had caused a lot of havoc in the area and that it was a miracle that members of the public were not caught up in the terrifying incident. Now, as shocking as this case is, it's terrifyingly not an isolated one. Alan Cartwright was a 15-year-old college student who was described by his friends as popular and funny. On the evening of February 27th, he and his friends were riding their bikes home when all of a sudden 3 boys ran in front of them and tried to steal their bikes. In this horrifying CCTV footage, you can see the thugs knocking 2 of Alan's friends off their bikes while others ride on. But what you don't see is that one of them has a knife, which he swings at Alan, jabbing him in the chest. Despite being mortally wounded, Alan managed to cycle on for a short while before collapsing a short distance up the road. He was pronounced dead a short time later. A week after the horrifying incident, one of the goons, later identified as 18-year-old Joshua Williams, was brought to the police station by his parents, who turned him in. When asked why they were there, his mother reportedly told an officer that it was about the incident, saying, "He's involved, he did it." The police also arrested 2 other boys, 19-year-old Shaquille Roberts and a 16-year-old whose name has never been revealed due to his age. But despite his parents turning him in, Joshua later claimed that he was at a youth center and was not really involved in Alan's murder. However, several witnesses testified that they saw him laughing as he fled the scene. It was also revealed that at the time of the incident, he was out on bail after being arrested on suspicion of possessing a 4-inch knife. At the time, he claimed that he was carrying the knife for protection because he had been a victim of a knife attack 3 months before. Still, the prosecution pointed out that the person wielding the knife in the CCTV footage was left-handed, and incidentally, so was Joshua. The jury only took 3 hours to deliberate and reject Joshua's explanation. They found him guilty of murder and conspiracy to rob. He was sentenced to a minimum of 21 years in prison. Meanwhile, Shaquille Roberts was given 30 months in jail, and the 16-year-old got 28 months after pleading guilty to robbery. These two tragic cases were followed by huge uproars from the public, demanding that the government should introduce stricter measures that will help curb knife crimes, which have become so common in England. What do you think about this case? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more.